Lincoln University is doing some work on the vineyard about timing.
Yeah, I'm working on the phenological development, so different timing of different varieties in terms of when they flower, when they start the beginning of the maturation period, but also what's coming up soon in the vineyard when they bud burst, the beginning of the growing season.
You've got some interesting varieties. You've got Viognier and Chardonnay, and you've still got Müller-Thurgau.
So I haven't actually used the historical, well, collecting data now a wee bit on this vineyard here, so it'll be interesting to see how the timing of these varieties perform. A lot of the work we've done is on historical data, particularly international data, where they've got years of information in terms of timing of phenology on varieties such as Müller-Thurgau, Viognier, Chardonnay and the like.
Are you expecting to find that all the different varieties have got their own time clock?
So we do know that they all have their different time clocks. So for example, in any given vineyard you'll have different timing between varieties of bud burst or flowering or veraison. So for example, Pinot Noir, it goes through flowering before, say, Cabernet Sauvignon, a variety that you'll find further up north in New Zealand.
Is climate a factor?
Climate is a key driver of our phenological models. So we spend a lot of time developing models to predict the timing of those key events using temperature as a key driver. So internationally that's important in the face of climate change. So there's a lot of questions. Are current varieties that we have planted now in certain regions going to be suitable in the future in that region, or do we need to start looking at varieties that are better adapted to warmer temperatures and perhaps develop later during the season?
You have people like Jim Grierson who will say that the season's 10 days behind or it's 10 days ahead.
So I think that's also a characteristic of cool climate viticulture. There's a lot of variability in our seasons, so incorporating that understanding of what's an average developmental time and then what's the variability around that time's a key part of our investigations. Can we predict with our models a huge variation in timing as well?
So what can you change with human input?
So in terms of looking at changes in development, there are management practices we can use, or changing varieties of course is your biggest change, looking at shifting what you have planted, but that's a big consideration given that a vineyard's relatively long term in terms of how long we want to keep the vines in the ground before changing them over. So alternatively we have got some what we might consider more short term adaptations that we can use, for example canopy manipulations, pruning, there's also growth regulators as well, and a lot of the work that we've done is looking at canopy manipulation, whether or not we can delay the timing of particularly later events in the season, such as the start of maturation and the maturation period itself.
We're in a region that gets frosts. Can you delay flowering?
In terms of flowering, research by other people, ex-university students, has shown that they can delay the timing of bud burst with a small shift in flowering, but flowering is perhaps the phenological stage that's least prone to shifting by human intervention. We're more likely to shift the onset of ripening and that ripening period through, say, canopy manipulation.
You're talking about manipulating the canopy. What are you actually doing?
So trimming, so reducing the height of the canopy, leaf plucking, that's often used in the fruiting zone actually to open up and aerate the canopy. So perhaps doesn't necessarily manipulate the timing unless you do it severely, in terms of what we use in standard industry practice. Crop removal, so that can actually enable you to speed up the ripening period. So in the cool climate, sometimes we actually, if we've got a limited season in terms of having a cool year, dropping crop might be a tool in the toolbox to sort of accommodate and speed up that ripening phase.
You're thinning then in that stage?
Thinning, yeah. So those are some of the key approaches to use in terms of shifting how those later events happen in the season.
Are you able to make it either early or late?
So trimming, you're removing leaves, so there's less leaves to provide sugars predominantly to the berries, so you're actually slowing the developmental period. And dropping crop, you're just reducing the number of fruit on the vine that require those sugars, so therefore it can go on a bit quicker.
So you can do both?
You can do both.